Hi dears, welcome to my channel. Today we are discussing part B of 10th lesson Heredity. In part A, up to Mendel's experiment we have seen. So in part B, the small part, that is sex determination in humans, are being discussed. After this, we will go for the questions which are given within the chapter Heredity. These questions may not be felt to be important, but it will be asked for the board exam in a different pattern. So just go through these questions, and from these we will understand about the chapter very well. Shall we start the class? Now let's see how we can determine the sex of the child. For reptiles and for tortoise, the sex is determined by the environmental factor, to say temperature. The eggs, when reached to the particular stage of development, depending on the temperature, the sex will be determined. If a small variation is happening to the temperature, there will be a tremendous change in the sex of the child for reptiles as well as for tortoise. For smaller animals like snails, they will be able to change the sex accordingly. So, the sex is not determined by the genetic factor in these cases. But what happens for the humans? In humans, genetic factor is the one which determines the sex. How is it possible? We are saying. We know every cell is having 46 chromosomes, or we can say 23 pair of chromosomes. Among them, 22 pairs are autosomes, and the last pair, that is 23rd pair, is sex chromosomes. For males, the sex chromosomes are in the form of X, Y, and for females, the sex chromosomes are in the form of XX. We know for the reproductive cells, they are always haploid. That is, the sperms of the males can be having X or Y chromosomes. Okay? So, the males can have sperms in the form of X or in the form of Y. But the female's reproductive cell will be having always X as their sex chromosome. Okay, so what happens during reproduction? We know the sperm has to fuse with the egg. If the sperm which is carrying X chromosome with it, if it is fusing with the egg, the zygote will be having XX in his chromosome, isn't it? So XX is what? Is it female or male? Female. So the child will be female. Instead, if the sperm which is carrying Y chromosome is fusing with the egg, what happens? The zygote is having XY as its chromosome. So XY is what? It is male. So the child will be boy. This is the way for determining the sex of baby in the case of humans. Thus, we are understanding one thing. The sex of the child is determined by the sex chromosome, which is inherited from the father and not by the mother. Because mother is always having X as her sex chromosome, but the father is having X or Y, isn't it? So, the sex of the child is determined by the gene which is inherited by his or her father. Now, we are discussing the questions which are given in the square boxes inside the lesson Heredity. These types of questions used to be asked for the board exams. So, we have to discuss these questions. Now, we are discussing the questions of the textbook. See, in the page number 129, two questions has been given. The first question is, if a trait A is existing in 10% of the population of a sexual reproducing species and trait B exists in 60% of the same population, which may have arisen earlier. See, here B is having 60% and A is having 10%. Which may have arisen earlier? Trait B may have arisen earlier and it will be spread up to 60%. But trait A is arising late. That's why it is now only 10%. Okay. Second question. How does creation of variation of species promote survival? In asexual reproduction, the variation is very less. But in the case of sexual reproduction, the children may look similar to the parents, but they will be much more variant compared to the parents. So, those variants which are suitable for the prevailing environment survives, and those which are not suitable for that will vanish. So, for example, bacteria which can tolerate heat, will be surviving in the heat waves while the others will be perished. In page number 133, 4 questions are there. First question is, how do Mendel's experiment shows that the trait is dominant or recessive is the question. When we are considering the monohybrid cross, after the F1 generation, self-crossing happened for the pea plants, and F2 generation they got as 3 dominant and 1 recessive. That is, both the traits are existing. Trait may be dominant or recessive. 75% will be dominant while 25% will be recessive. Next question is, how do Mendel's experiment shows that traits are inherited independently? For the dihybrid cross, Mendel went for 2 generations. He had taken parents as 2 pairs of alternative characteristics. For the F1 generation, the plants were having dominant characteristic of that of the parent. He made the F1 generation for self-crossing. Thus, he got F2 progeny who had the phenotype similar to that of parent and the phenotype which are different from parent. He understood that the pair of alternative characteristics behaves independently of the other pair and they are inherited independently of each other. The next question is, a man with blood group A married to a woman with blood group O. The daughter has O as her blood group. Is A or O dominant? This is the question. Now we are considering the man. The man is having AO pair or AA pair. And the woman will be having OO pair. So, how will be the daughter? Here the daughter is having O blood group, which means this will be the set of chromosome which she is having. If the man is having AA, this will be. Here the daughter can have AO. So the blood group will be O. Actually, this information is not quite enough to know whether the blood group O or blood group A is dominant. The last question is, how is the sex of the child determined in human being? We know the human are having 23 pairs of chromosomes. Among them 22 are autotrophs and 1 pair is sex chromosome. Male are having XY as the sex chromosome while females are having XX as their sex chromosomes. But the gametes will be having only 1 set of sex chromosome. For females it will be always X. But for males it can be X or can be Y. When the sperm having Y chromosome is fused with the egg, zygote will be having sex chromosome as XY. So the child will be boy. Instead, if the sperm having X chromosome is fusing with the egg, the zygote will be having XX as its sex chromosome. So, the child will be girl. From this we can understand the sex of the child is determined from the gene which is inherited from her father. This diagram also you have to represent. Father having chromosome number 44 plus XY and the mother having chromosome number 44 plus XX. For the gamete formation, the sperm can have 22 plus X as its chromosome or 22 plus Y as its chromosome. But for females, it will be 22 plus X only. Then when fusing happens, there are chances for the girl to be and the boy to be is 50:50. 1:1 ratio it will be. This also you have to represent if such a question is asked. Thank you for spending time with me. We can meet in the next class. Bye.